And now, it's the Finding Your Spine podcast with host Chase Spears.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Finding Your Spine podcast, where we call morally principled men and women to take a stand for the truth and to put it to work in their lives, leadership, and workplaces. I'm joined today with an amazing woman, Caedran Sullivan. Caedran is a mother of two, an 18-year veteran of teaching English in the Shawnee Mission School District, and a woman who's absolutely committed to standing for freedom. And I'm just so thrilled that you're here with me today. You have walked a hard path. You've walked it boldly, you've walked it bravely, and you've got a really great story I'm excited about telling.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you're no stranger to this. You've been, you're native to this area, you're native to the school district, you're a mother, you came up in the school district, your children came up, your education is all local.
Yes.
You're fighting in your own yard here.
That's right.
So...
yes, I grew up K through 8 in the Shawnee Mission School District, and my kids went to the school district K through 12, and my family has lived in this area for a very long time, and it's my home and my community, and I'm fighting for it.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into education, what quote-unquote normal life was like before you became a rather celebrity figure when it comes to education and freedom in schools.
Okay, I had a normal upbringing. I like I said, went to school in Shawnee Mission, and I got my first degree in psychology in 1994 from KU. And then I took some years off. I really didn't know what I was doing that first time around. I got my degree, but then was kind of adrift for a while, several years. Moved around, lived in a bunch of different areas, and then I came back to live in Kansas City. I got married and had 2 kids, and then went back to school to get my second BA in secondary education, English, and then taught in the Shawnee Mission School District where my kids were in school, and then got my master's in English through National University out of San Diego. So
you're a veteran educator. You're plugging away in the school district, teaching at a rather high level, and everything's going great. And then suddenly there was a change of the atmosphere that coincided around the 2017-ish changing of the administrations.
Yes, that's true. I did not come into education until I was in my 30s, and so I think it would have been different had I been 20 years old, 21, 22 going into education. But for whatever reason, I had been in the system long enough to see kind of the background of what was happening even before that time. In 2016, Donald Trump was elected, and then in 2019, our district implemented the curriculum that it uses for DEI called the Corwin Deep Equity Curriculum, and we started that 5-year phase in 2019. And I was in opposition to it from the beginning. There were things that were happening in that curriculum that just did not make sense to me. And in 2021, I hand-delivered a letter to the principal stating, in fact, that this curriculum was not sustainable. And there were people of goodwill in this district and in this staff who did not believe these things. And at the time, I was teaching AP 11. I taught that for over a decade, and all it is argument. And what my main concern was is you can't have an argument if only one side is being presented, and that's what was happening with this curriculum. And I said we need to make some changes so that other views can be heard. To make this a fair argument. Until that happens, it's not a fair argument. So that's kind of how that started.
And the whole issue of why this curriculum was problematic had to do with really kind of its focus on seeing everything through a critical worldview lens, kind of is.
Yes, it's basically a business model for educators and education in corporations to usher in a critical race theory, critical consciousness, raising that with our students and to implementing those concepts into our pedagogy and our curriculum with our students. And I was opposed to that. I don't think that you should be separating students by identities, and equity. Equity is really used instead of equality, and I was opposed to that as well. And inclusion is pretty much anyone unless you're hostile to these concepts, and then you're excluded. It's not. There is no diversity of thought within this program. And I started to push back on that a little bit, and then I was targeted and had for my free speech rights, and so that's kind of gotten me to where we are today.
Yeah. So you see this curriculum, you see the clear problems, and I want to back up a little bit because you and I know pretty well what critical theories are, well versed in that. I think there are a lot of people who still don't understand. They hear DEI and they know it's not something that's good. They might not necessarily know why. And can we break that down a little bit and help people who maybe, I think most people listening are familiar, but maybe there's onesies, twosies who
it is complicated, and it's deliberately complicated because when you think about the words diversity, equity, and inclusion, they sound like great words, but the definitions of these terms have been inverted and manipulated to mean not what they say that they mean, and you have to be careful and aware of what they are doing to manipulate those phrases. And critical race theory, basically, if I had to use an example, would be from a traditional teacher standpoint, if you were to use the vocabulary word poverty, it would be defined as the state of being poor. That would be a traditional way to discuss poverty. But from a critical race standpoint, you would say poverty is the system that has been used to make somebody poor, and twist that curriculum around to where you are heightening students' critical consciousness of the power systems within society that are either make you an oppressor or oppressed, and to fight those systems, and basically to make little social justice warriors out of our students. And so I just was opposed to that, and I could see through it, and I have just made a point to stand against that.
Yeah, that's something that I know has been at the university level for a very long time. I wrapped up my doctoral studies at Kansas State University last year, and it was very heavily put into the curriculum I went through. I got really good at reading C.S. Lewis as an antidote to all the critical stuff that I was reading. But, we were talking earlier about how this has made its way all the way down into pre-K curriculum.
It would take me. I've done a lot of research, and if you went to the NEA Shawnee Mission website, it would take you about 30 seconds to get to hundreds of state-aligned lesson plans that would be. I mean, for transgender, you've got them all the way from pre-K all the way up to 12th grade, teaching very young children about words like cisgender, and saying things like they're assigned gender at birth, when, in my opinion, everybody knows that your gender is observed at birth, not assigned at birth. You're either a male or a female. Yep. And we're confusing these kids and basically creating cognitive dissonance in them to question just very simple truths that, and we shouldn't be doing that to them.
No, I mean, the point of school is not to indoctrinate into something that's completely lacks any ontology, any reality. And my mind goes back to the writings of John Dewey, who's kind of seen as the father of the modern public education system. He was the head of the teachers college there at Princeton University, and he was not unashamed to say the point of getting children into an education system that is run by and for the government is to isolate and separate them from the, quote, prejudices and values of their parents so that we can, make them into the citizens that we think they should be. And,
yes. Go ahead.
And they're just starting like he was unashamed about that. Like, he openly said it. And of course today they try to hide, they try to coax their rhetoric and say, oh no, we're just the 3 R's. We're not doing DEI, but you look and it's clear as day.
That's true. I see this all the time, and it is very confusing for people who have not been in the system and don't know what's happening. And one of the things that I am moving towards is to have that transparency on what they are teaching to the kids, but a lot of teachers don't want to do that. But with Marxism and Marxist thought and critical theory, the goal is to raise critical consciousness. The goal of education is to not be a teacher with knowledge, but to be a co-teacher in discovering these the critical consciousness you need to raise your awareness on a number of issues. And in our case right now, there are 4 main issues that are being focused on in the curriculum, and that would be race, gender, climate, and now we've got Palestine thrown in the colonizing communities that are coming in and taking over. We get information about that all the time, about decolonizing our classrooms, and it's essentially erasing Western civilization from our curriculum, and that's intentional, yes.
I hear a lot of people will push back on folks like us and say, you're just trying to be political. Mm-hmm. This is about just accepting all people and welcoming all people, and we all know the talking points. We've read it.
How can you be against diversity? How can you be against inclusion?
Yeah.
So yes, all of that would be spun towards me about that.
And they wrap them in these value terms. It's like we hear, well, this program's for the public good. Well, you want to be for the public good, don't you?
Right.
In the military, it was, having transgender soldiers equates to readiness. It doesn't. But you don't want to be against readiness, do you? They tie these value terms to these things that are completely asinine.
It's empathy. It's blackmail by empathy. I mean, it's shaming you for not having the same vision that they do. Mm-hmm. And I did not. I want free dialogue and free thought, and I'd like to be able to have those conversations without feeling like that, or having them actually come against me for having those opinions.
Yeah, but they never actually meet you up on the high ground that you're holding. It's always an emotional, limbic, throw mud, throw names, you're not one of us.
Right.
It's never you're standing on a field, let me come meet you on the field and spar with you at the level that you're going to spar with.
There's actually a chapter in the curriculum near the end for the facilitators on how to deal with people like me who are resistant. There's a chapter on dealing with resistant members of your staff, and it's absolutely amazing. You would be astonished at some of the things to ignore. If I have a question that is getting a little bit too close to problematic for them, then it's either ignore the question, delay the response. If I ask the question, delay the response, isolate me from any others who might think the same way I do, reorganize the group so I'm isolated from anyone who might, be thinking like I do. Direct confrontation, meeting me later, the back door, come around to me after I ask the question and then approach me individually to try to, and not in front of the group, that kind of thing, where it was just a plan of action to deal with resistors like me. So it was calculated and bad. I mean, it looks bad. I mean, I'm not even able to have my own thoughts about the subject, and I had, it was moving towards the direction where we are right now. So.
And I don't think most people understand. Matthew Lohmeyer wrote a book a couple of years ago about this in the military. Irresistible Revolution, did a remarkable job of like peeling the onion back on how these philosophies, these are not just societal thought struggles of our day. This is the revolutionary playbook. When you look at the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia 100 plus years ago, 1917, when you look at the Cultural Revolution of China of 1953, when you look at every other time in the 19th century that a government was overthrown by radical revolutionaries who came in and installed a brutal communist regime, this is the playbook.
It's the issue is not the issue. Everything goes back to the revolution or eliminating what is standing in their way. I was standing in their way, or at least pushing back against it, and they had to do something about that. But no, it's and it changes. I mentioned this, but in 2020 it was mostly race. Black Lives Matter had just happened, COVID had just happened, and race was the big thing. 2 years later, it has shifted to you don't even hear about Black Lives Matter anymore, hardly at all. You hear about the transgender issue, and so now that's where that's where the tide is going more now. But it's already starting to turn a corner there too. You're losing support for that movement, and it'll switch to something else. It's just a constantly moving target where whatever is convenient for them to create that resistance to traditional, sane, normal, just everyday common sense things like a boy and a girl. They need to figure out ways to upend that and disrupt those normal. And that's what it is. That's what this is.
Well, and they're not shy about it either. I mean, they're open and brazen. I was introduced to this really during my studies at K-State, like all the literature that we read in that program. Dismantle and deconstruct. I mean, those are their action words. I read it over and over and over and over again. We must dismantle and deconstruct everything that is real, everything that is true, everything that is beautiful, because it is all oppressive.
Right. And I mean, when I was getting my master's in English, there is critical theory. I mean, you get into upper level English and you are looking at theory and the different ways to look at a text. But these are an audience, a captivated audience of young children that do not have the emotional intelligence to know how to even respond to it. They just believe their teachers. So you've got that. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about 18, 19, 20-year-olds where we're debating theories now. We're talking about 5, 6, 7-year-olds where we're saying that this is the world.
And they don't even know that it's what it is. They just know that it's destabilizing. I mean, it's destabilizing them and their ideas, and it is often at odds with the way their parents want them to view the world. And they don't even know what's happening in the schools, and that is a problem. The transparency issue is not acceptable, and parents should know what all of their students are going to see, and it's not even hard to do that. I mean, we're given curriculum maps at the beginning of the year. Every grade level has them in Shawnee Mission, and you just discuss what you're going to be reading with this particular curriculum. It's even easier in math. I mean, math follows a very straightforward progression in the concepts of math. And algebra, you move up through the system, and it's just easy to relay those to parents, but they do not know what's going on. Most of them do not know the level of how it is infiltrated into the education system.
And you've noted in your writings about this that school officials deliberately keep this information from the parents. They don't want the parents to know. They don't want the parents involved.
It's deliberately vague. So I wrote the letter, and then I was targeted for my free speech. I was targeted
for writing a letter, not even speaking out publicly, writing a letter.
They knew that I was against it. And so then there were a lot of things that happened. I refused to. First, I opposed to the DEI curriculum. Second, I don't use pronouns. Third, I won't lie to parents about their children transitioning. And fourth, what was the fourth? I can't remember it. I'm blanking right now. I wrote the articles. Okay, so I wrote the articles. After all of this stuff had happened, I was retaliated against. I had 2 sham investigations opened against me. The second one, which was very expensive as far as having to retain a lawyer to help me through it. And I've had all of these things happen, a hostile workplace. I had my classes stripped from me. My AP classes that I've taught for more than a decade were stripped from me, and those classes were taken. And it's just been one thing after another. But those articles, there were 3 main points. The first article that I wrote was after the investigation. I was...
And that's this one here, Kansas public school teacher, yes, your children are being indoctrinated.
Yes, I wrote that because I had a sham investigation that punished me, disciplined me with a formal written reprimand in my personnel file forever for no policy violation. And so there was nothing that ever happened. I was disciplined and threatened with discipline if I did not do what they said, which in this case is using the pronouns. I'm still threatened if I don't, threatened up into termination from my job if I don't use the pronouns.
Even though this isn't in policy, they won't back this in actual
When this
policy.
case happened, there was no policy, and then quickly, because they realized there was no policy, they drafted something up. But even then, it's not policy with the parents, with the lying to the parents. And so anyway, this sham investigation happened where I had been punished, and they fabricated a reason to give me training for nothing. And then after that sham investigation, we had a staff meeting where first I was told I needed to use the pronouns. We have to use the pronouns. And then at the staff meeting, we were told we don't have to use the pronouns if the child says that it's unsafe with their parents, and then we're not supposed to use the pronouns. And so it was at that moment where I said, I'm being punished and we're being asked to use pronouns, except when we're not supposed to use pronouns. And so then I drafted that first article, and that's when everything kind of lit on fire for me and my life after that first article. I said that number one, the DEI, the taxpayers pay for it, and the parents of students in the building need to know what the DEI teacher training is. They're not even allowed to see it unless they go in and schedule a time to look at the curriculum with, in a closed setting, sort of. That's the only way that you can look at it. There needs to be a law that you can't have third contracts where the people who are paying for the curriculum can't even see the curriculum. It just doesn't even make sense. They should know what it says. They should be able to see the videos that we watch, the 72 or however many pronouns or genders that you can have that they're telling us in these in this curriculum. But they won't do that, and they haven't done that. And so that was one of the things that I brought up, that it's not transparent, and taxpayers should be able to see it. Secondly was the gender gender policy. There was no gender policy, and they're telling us to lie to parents when there's no policy for that. Like, what is I think parents should know that there is a chance, or that they're telling the teachers that we are to lie to them if their child says that it's unsafe for them to trans at home. And I just was adamantly opposed to that, and that's really what sparked me to write the articles, because that's just, I can't think of, as a parent myself, and I would question any parent, under what circumstances is it acceptable for a school, including the administration, the nurse, the teachers, the school counselors, everyone, to intentionally deceive you on what's happening with your minor child. And if it was me that had happened to, I would be first in line to litigate if I could do so. It's just not right. It's driving a wedge between a divine relationship of mother and child, or parent and child, and it's not acceptable for schools to be doing that. And so I was adamantly opposed to anything along that, and the government cannot compel me to affirm or to do things that are not that are at odds with my faith that I live by, which is to not lie. I won't do it. So that was that. And then my third point in the article was we've strayed from actual academics. I mean, we should not be doing any of this DEI. We shouldn't be doing any of it. We shouldn't be doing SEL. We need to be focusing on reading and writing and math facts, and it's just, all you have to do is look at the numbers in our state and see that the proficiency rates are not good. And so why are we even doing it? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, when we have schools across the state, especially even where I live over in Lansing, they're nowhere near hitting state targets, and state targets are not that high to hit to begin with.
At me, it feels intentional. The fact that we're wasting any moments of our time talking about DEI or gender, it's not our place. I don't need to know. I'm here to teach English. It doesn't matter to me if you want to be trans. That makes no difference in my English curriculum. I don't want to know who you're sexually attracted to at the age of 15. Why do I need to know that? I mean, it's ridiculous. We need to be focusing on paragraph structure. I have students that in the 11th grade, when I was teaching 11th grade, that turn in formal papers that have no punctuation in them, don't know how to formulate a paragraph, don't read, don't want to read. Like I was saying, I had a student this year who did not know what 7 times 7 was. These are math facts that should be learned in early elementary school. What is even happening? Like, what is even happening? Why are we not focusing solely on the academic pursuits that our parents and our teachers want to be teaching? I feel passion for the subject of English. I love teaching English, and that's my job. I'm not here to be a counselor. I'm not here to be a psychologist for you or to fix your problems. I'm trustworthy and I'm fair, and I will be a resource for you if you need help. But I'm not a counselor, and it's not my job to affirm your beliefs that you're a boy if you're a girl, or a girl if you're a boy. It's just not my job.
Or as I've heard in some schools, that you're a cat or a dog or
right.
a whatever have
or
you.
anything. But
yeah.
I will say that what I'm not trying to win anybody over to my side.
Mm-hmm.
I am speaking for freedom. We have freedom in this country to believe what we want to believe, and that includes everybody. If you want to believe that you're a dragon, then you can believe that if you want. But what you can't do is compel me to affirm your beliefs that go against my own beliefs. And I'm fighting for that. I don't think that it is illegal. It is illegal for the government to force me to affirm what is directly against what my faith is. It just is not. It's not right.
Yeah, this is a very one-sided thing. We talked about this earlier, and you used a great analogy of if you were secretly baptizing children. I might throw in if you were secretly catechizing kids to the Westminster Confession. Yeah, it would be a scandal. I mean, the
world would be on fire from
yeah.
the outrage, and but we're expected to secretly, if need be, to keep this information from parents and intentionally deceive them about what is happening with their own children. I mean, this is what on three different occasions in Shawnee Mission, that was said to me. It was said to all of us at the staff meeting through these DEI PD sessions. That's what they're telling us to do if we need to. Not only that, but there's we're all as teachers mandatory reporters. And so if a child says that they're unsafe, it starts a whole process that is we're legally obligated to go through this process. Why are we not doing that? If these kids are saying that they're unsafe, why aren't we going through the channels that are already established if a child says they're unsafe? But with trans students, we don't have to do that mandatory reporting. We just lie to them for, I guess, as long as the administrators decide that we need to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that, I mean, that's just backwards too. But I do believe that it is a divine relationship with a parent and a child, and it is wrong to drive a wedge between that. These parents love them more than anybody in the world. And it's not our place as a district to come between that because of this ideology that they're hanging on to.
You know, I'm a father of 5. You're a mother of 2. If I found out there was someone trying to turn my children against me and to tell my children that my faith, my values are wrong and they're oppressive, those would be fighting words.
Well, and, you know, there's also the fact of the legal ramifications for people like me. Let's say that the school is telling us if the child says it's unsafe, then not to use their pronouns in front of their parents. And then it's also not in policy. Let's say some parent does find out and decides to sue me, and then the school says, we never told her to do that. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in this policy that tells her to do that. You know, so it's like they give themselves an out while asking us to do this when it's against my rights to even assume that I would be willing to do that. It's just straight lying. And, you know, parents believe us and want to believe that they're leaving their kids with people who are trustworthy, you know, and it's just a violation of everything that I stand for to be even for that. And with the pronouns, it's to me, if I affirm that, then I'm lying to the students. I just sincerely do not believe that boys can just decide one day to be a girl, and a girl can just decide one day that they're now a boy, which happens every year. You have a student that just all of a sudden, I don't want to go by this name anymore, now I'm this. Or you have a gender fluid student where you don't even know any day of the week. What is it going to be? I mean, if you're gender fluid, you can be anything at any time. Mm-hmm. You know, so how are teachers supposed to even manage that as far as the pronouns? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, if these administrators were really as brave as they want to pretend to be, they'd actually be willing to have skin in the game. But they're happy to not have the policies and leave people like you right there on the front lines to absorb every bit of that risk.
And so the policy issue was very important to me because there really was no policy violation. There was no policy. So, I mean, the sham investigation was just a way for them to get to me and put something in my file, you know, and retaliate against me not liking the DEI. It's just, in my opinion, blatantly obvious. But when you're actually in there and you can see what's happening as a teacher and these students, it is difficult because you are looked at. I've been called everything. I mean, like I said, after the first article, I found out that there was going to be a protest against me at the school.
Congratulations. That's a life running right there.
So I found out that there was going to be a protest, so I wrote my second article, and there was a protest, and I was called everything. I've been called everything. All I have, I mean, if someone said they were trans, I would just say, that's fine. Today we're going to study T.S. Eliot and see how the characteristics of modernism can be seen in this particular poem. And, it makes no difference to me. I'm not even concerned with it. Why do I even have to care about that? Just this is where we're doing English, you know? So I love everybody. It doesn't matter to me if you have beliefs that are different than mine. I'm not compelling you to go, to believe what I believe, but I am being compelled to affirm your beliefs, and I freely will admit you're able to believe whatever you want to believe, but so am I, and it's a constitutional right not to compel me to go against them, and so I did have that protest, and I've been called names, and that has also, students aren't blind. They can see what's happening, and they have, there's just people lying about people that I've never met or have never been in my classroom or never said a single word to me, are just making stuff up, and there's just no basis in it. And so I've had to make my peace with that, and I have. It doesn't deter me at all with my beliefs. Just I'm actually more steadfast in them the more pushback I get, because it doesn't matter what anybody says to me. I just believe what I believe, and I have that right.
Yeah, you absolutely do have that right. And I want to go back in 2019. You write this letter to the principal. This is long before you've gone.
In 2021.
Was it 2020? Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's
2021.
okay.
You write the letter to the principal, having no idea you're going to probably soon at some point become a name that's gone viral, that you're going to get this kind of news attention. And then it comes after the first article. And I mean, you've been all over the place. You've been on Fox. You're well
Daily
covered.
Wire.
A quick Google search, you're famous.
I've been on local news. Just all over.
And yet, so many people at that. Well, first off, hardly anyone would have ever had the guts to write the letter to the principal, to stand out in those professional development sessions, and say, "Hey, we got a problem here." And then to stand up through the sham investigations and then write this article, and then the news comes. I mean, just thing after thing after thing after thing after thing, snowballing that would have made 98.9%, if not more, of the population say, "I'm out. I'm out." You're not out.
No, I had to make a decision. I decided a long time ago that I would never live in a way that would compromise my core principles, and I'm going to stand by that commitment that I made to myself. And so I knew that it was going to be a risk. I was not prepared for how fast it happened, but I had to do it. I had mentioned that quote by Ayn Rand. I think it is, what was it? I wasn't brave enough to be a coward. And I would be letting myself down if I didn't follow through on it and fight for my rights to freedom of speech and thought.
And to not lie to children and not to lie to parents. I mean, it's kind of like I think frequently of that line from Alexander Solzhenitsyn, "Let the lie come, but not through me."
Right. So I felt like I would have been complicit in something bad if I just kept quiet about it. And I really did believe that parents didn't know that that's what they were telling us in the staff meetings. I don't think any parent that I know would be on board in any circumstances for lying to them about their own minor child. Mm-hmm. There's nobody that I know that would be for that as a parent. And maybe if you're not a parent and you don't understand just those feelings of just that divine connection, it just seemed terrible. Like I could not be a part of it. I was not going to be a part of it. And I think I mentioned there was one comment by a girl who said, what if their parents wanted them to be trans? What if their parents were on board with it and they wanted you to call them whatever pronoun they wanted, and they missed the whole point of that, where I didn't care who believed it. I don't believe it. Like, I don't believe it. And so you can believe whatever you want to believe and do whatever you want to do. I have to live by my principles, or I'm denying myself something that is very core on the inside of me that I'm not willing to give up. I just won't. And I've been, this situation was not something that I looked for. It just happened this way, and there was nothing else I could do.
Yeah, and what we don't acknowledge enough, and we need to say more, is they are demanding moral injury on our part. They're demanding that we go along with something we know not to be true, and frankly, they know it not to be true.
I think everybody knows that only women can have babies.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows that men cannot menstruate. These things are simple, and they're deliberately telling young kids in our district, for sure, that is questionable, that those things are not true, that they're being assigned at birth, that somebody is keeping you from being yourself, which might not be a girl or a boy. I mean, it's generating confusion and we talk about the mental health of students these days, and it's like it seems intentional to create anxiety and depression and like I said, just denying reality. I mean, also, if you look at it from the point of, the one that was like anorexia, we would never affirm that was healthy to starve yourself. We wouldn't affirm that.
No, we wouldn't.
But we affirm this for whatever reason, and it's intentionally to disrupt. It's queer theory, actually. It's to disrupt social norms, to usher in this this new way of thinking. And I just could see it from a long way off, that it was moving in this direction. I don't want to be a part of it.
No, I mean, no one who wants to be able to look themselves in the mirror should willingly be a part of it. I want to rewind the tape a little bit. So you wrote these two articles, both of them for The Lion, which is actually published just down the hall from us here at the Herzog Foundation. And you told me before we came in the studio that you knew that first one was probably going to be a little bit of a storm. I don't know if you anticipated just how much of a storm it would be.
No, and at that point I had never even heard of The Lion. And I was like, okay, let's put it there. And it just went everywhere. It went all over. And I still stand behind everything that I wrote in that article. It's not right what they're doing. It's still, even now they're kind of trying to memory hole that they used the Corwin curriculum. I mean, now they're trying to like back off on it. But even today, I mean, so in Shawnee Mission, there are phases of the strategies. There are 3 5-year phases, so 15 years of strategy in 5-year increments. The first 5 years was from 2019 to 2024, and that was when we had the Corwin curriculum. Now we're in phase 2 of the strategy. And even now, where is the curriculum coming from? Like, who's writing the curriculum? Why isn't it transparent that parents and taxpayers can see it? Like, where is it? Like, who is, even now, they still aren't really releasing the curriculum. And so there's that issue, and the policy is still vague. I mean, they would never, ever put down in writing that there's a chance that they would lie to parents, because they know it's wrong, and they know that there would be tremendous backlash. I think that a lot of, I think I've said before, there are three ways you can look at it. Either teachers and administrators are completely ignorant on what is happening, like aren't even discerning the damage that is being done through DEI and SEL and all these things, Marxist critical race theory. But I lost my train of thought for a second. Oh, shoot. I remember. They're either ignorant that it's happening, or they know that it's happening and they're for it, or they don't agree with it and they're too cowardly to stand up to it because they're also afraid of the mob. The mob will come for you if you stand up for it. It's starting to turn a little bit, I think. I think people are seeing it for what it is and resisting it more than they ever have. The parents are rising up about it. I mean, as they should. I mean, you should know what's going on in your kids' schools, but it is difficult because, for me, I'm not sure. I just could see it and wasn't going to stand up for it. But it is a real. It will happen. And like I said, there have been teachers in my own building at Shawnee Mission North who have come up to me secretly and thanked me for writing the articles, pushing back against it. We're so sick of it. But they really hesitate to stand up to it because they don't want to have a protest against them. They have a wife and kids at home. They need to have a job. You know, a lot of people will just leave the profession. You know, like they push you out. They take away your classes. They give you classes that nobody wants. They make it a hostile work environment. They will monitor you and what you're doing in your meetings. And it does make sense to some people why that would be a scary thing to not push back on. But even if I can inspire one other teacher to stand up to it, then it is progress.
Well, and just last week, we had Kayla Toney from First Liberty Institute on, and one of the things that she talked about was how when someone takes a stand, one of their clients takes a stand, it's not just about that individual person. Often the case law that comes out of that affects wide swaths, sometimes even nationally, when cases get up to the Supreme Court.
Right.
And you're going ahead and pushing forward with a legal challenge on this as well.
Well, we had exhausted every available option, and the district for the longest time just would not engage and wouldn't submit what they needed to, and they wouldn't agree to mediation. They just were kind of stonewalling and non-responsive, and so we did go ahead and file the lawsuit. And I think that in my case, you know, I do think there is an element of them knowing that we don't have very much money. It's expensive to get a lawyer. And now we're 2.5 years in to me having a lawyer. And so it's a lot of people just don't have the money to do it. Don't have the money. I don't have the money to do this. You know, I did open up a Give, Send, Go, but it's very demoralizing to have to do this and to see just it is hard because you want to do what's right, but it almost feels like that they're intentionally not engaging so that you will just give up, because most teachers don't have the money for this, and it is a very long process, and I'm having to learn about so many things that were just new to me, like how long it actually is. I mean, there's a lot of wait time, and you want to do it the proper way, and I've tried everything that I could to do it the proper way, going through every step just the way you're supposed to, you know, and in each step of the way it's basically a non-response. So yes, we are moving forward, and we're in that process now. So I mean, I would love to get precedent, but I just want to shine a light on it and try as hard as I can to have my freedom of thought, the freedom to not be compelled to speak at the government's beck and call.
And it's not even just for you. I was watching another one of your podcast appearances, and you talked about how even children in the school, the kids, that they are pressured to go along with this, that they are told if you disagree you need to be quiet, that it's not even just the teachers, but that school children
it's
are being
again, it's one of
persecuted.
those unwritten, everybody knows that if you will, for kids it's all on social media, a lot of it. It'll just be they'll just get torched on social media, and it would be posted and they would be ostracized. I have had students who feel like they can't say anything, also secretly coming up to me and thanking me for bringing it up. Letters have been written to me by students thanking me for bringing this up and standing up to it. But it's very daunting for a young person to have to think about going through that kind of pressure to conform to something that they don't believe. And I think that's what was so hard for me, when just because I've taught arguments so long, that it's not a fair argument. There should be dissent. You should be glad to have dissent so that you can prove your points with evidence and not shut down evidence or cancel people because they think differently, or to shut them down or push them out. You should be able to have dissent so that it clarifies and strengthens your own argument. You can't argue with someone if you don't know even what the opposition is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can you make an argument if you don't know what the opposition is saying in good faith, or even be able to recount what the opposition would say in their words, instead of making them look like they're racist or transphobic or calling them all these terrible names? Maybe try to have the argument instead of just shutting it out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's frowned upon.
I think often when I see these spats happening, and a lot of the times it happens on social media, then when I see people throw these words that end in phobic or ist, that I know right thing critical thought is not involved. They're not honestly trying to engage in the discussion. They're not honestly trying to engage in the debate. They're trying to shut you down. They're trying to shame you, but you refuse to be shamed. And how do you do it when so few will?
I have a lot of willpower, for one thing, and I just truly and sincerely and honestly believe that what they're doing is wrong. And kids absolutely are having their education taken from them. It should not be this way. They shouldn't have to be worried about this political indoctrination in their curriculum, or to have teachers trying to create in them a way of thinking, instead of just having, like actual education in the search of beauty, truth, and virtue. That's what I believe. But I think that everybody is searching for meaning in their lives. I've just found my meaning in this faith, and so I try every day to live that faith the best I can. And I'm just a regular person who fails a lot, but I feel very strongly about this issue, that it's it's just morally wrong, but like I said, you don't have to agree with me, but I have the right to freedom of thought, and to not to have compelled speech. So I just believe it. I believe it. And so nothing can, at this point, since I've already had the protest, already been called everything. I mean, at this point, it's like, okay, whatever you're going to throw at me it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, your mission is bigger than your desire to be approved of by such small people.
I do not need anybody's approval.
Yeah.
I don't need anybody's approval. And I've said to people, it wouldn't matter to me if nobody but me believed it. If it was just me, I would still take this stand.
And one other thing I really wanted to get to was, I know you've heard from people around the country, through your school even, who thank you for taking a stand.
Mm-hmm.
And I, on a smaller scale, identify because I had similar things during my time in the Army. people seeing the stands I was taking, the things that I was writing, the things I was calling out. Again, not trying to be loud, not trying to be boisterous. It was just very simply, I see this wrong, and I must acknowledge it. And all the people that come and say, in the shadows, where no one else can see, or through a DM so that no one else is around, oh, I support you, I agree with this, thank you so much. Okay, well, come join me. And I know you've had similar.
Yes, and I've decided to stay in my lane with that. I think that this situation was brought to me. It just happened this way. And this is where I am. I don't want to make judgments on other people's reasons for not doing what they feel like they should do. I mean, maybe in their circumstances, but yes, it would be nice to have, I think if they can see one person or two people, it's not just me. There are other teachers who have done this, who can just show them that it's not the end of the world, and that it does feel right to do. I mean, I do sincerely believe it. I sincerely believe that what I am doing is to protect my rights that are granted to me in the Constitution. These are. It's just. I would like help. I am thankful for even the recognition that I get, but I do wish that people would stand up and just say no more. And I think that would shift, but and then you've got the whole issue with just the school choice. There's another way to show support, and that would be to leave these institutions that are doing it. But that's also very difficult for people to do. It all comes down to a choice on what you're willing to, on how far you're willing to go to protect what you think is right. We talk about school choice. There's a lot of school choice discussion around. I do think that there needs to be options. I was telling you earlier, I had a message from a father who had a child in kindergarten. And he said that he knew that it was happening at his school, but he didn't know what to do. And a lot of these parents don't have the time to wait. If you've got a kindergartner, you've got 12 years in the system that is potentially going to damage, what they learn, or maybe they're not going to learn or be proficient, or they're not focusing on academics, or you don't have time as a parent to wait for the school to figure it out or for the law to figure it out. You need to either leave now or, homeschool, or put them in a different school, or do whatever is right for your family. And that's another way that you can stand up to it. But all of the options require a choice and a commitment to that belief that you need to stand up to it.
Yeah, where there are numbers, there's strength. And I wish, in my perfect world, every Christian parent and every even non-Christian parent of shared moral conviction would say, we're not playing this game anymore. Stop wasting our time going to school board meetings where we're being ignored, yank our kids out, and then form a coalition that demands that we stop being robbed of those tax dollars to go to those corrupt school systems that we're no longer using. I bet you there'd be some traction. And similar thing, we both share a love of Scripture. Mm-hmm. Think back to the story of, Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot's living there, and Abraham has been warned by the Lord that the cities are going to be destroyed, and he's saying, but what if you can find 100 good people there? Okay, well, if you can find even just 10 good people there, okay, for 10 good people I will relent and I will not destroy. There's got to be more than 10 good people in every USD. There's got to be. And if everyone who said they agree with you.
I do think that the tide is turning a little bit, and I think that there is more awareness of what is happening, and I think that that schools, until schools even admit that they're doing it, the DEI, even to admit what the curriculum is and to stop denying that they're telling parents, what they're possibly going to, that you won't know if your child is transitioning. That I think that because it is becoming more out in the open that there is more pushback. But until the schools say we need to stop doing this and to go back and focus on academics, it's really difficult to see how they're going to recover from it. I would like to see schools recover from it, but it's very difficult to see that when you've been in the system and see what's happening, in the system. So I hope that more people do. I do think that choice is valid. They need to have some. They're not going to be motivated to change if they're not allowed to have any choice in where their kids are educated. So I am pro school choice, but at the same time, we had this talk about the federal dollars. Mm-hmm. Anytime federal dollars is going towards education, then they have their foot in the door, and that's also going to be an element that's going to be difficult to overcome. Also, just removing your kids from the school is not necessarily going to stop them from seeing it on their phones or seeing it in their friends or seeing it in movies and television. It's all over everywhere. So even if you remove the kid from public schools, you're still going to have to be cognizant of what is available, out there for them to see.
Yeah, which requires parents being parents.
Yep. Yeah. And that's also not easy all the time. But I do think that parents have to step in and be accountable for what's happening with their own child's education as well. And if they're seeing that this is happening, or if they're learning that this is happening, or that if you've got a teacher that's teaching that America is systemically racist and that all their institutions are complicit in, whatever, then you should push back on that. Require transparency on the curriculum. I would not have your students do any surveys. All the SEL surveys, you should opt your child out of those surveys. It's just data mining. I mean, that data is going somewhere. Do you want your kids to be answering those questions about suicide and political affiliation of your parents and your sexual preferences and if you've done drugs and all of these things are in these surveys?
Really?
Why are you having your kids do these? Where is that information going?
That is so intrusive.
Yeah.
Wow, I've known of SEL. I had no idea about those surveys.
Yeah, in public school, at least in our school, they do surveys. I would demand to see what the surveys are and get requests to see what's on them and what are the questions that are being asked. Have you ever felt like killing yourself? Questions like that. Those are questions that a parent would want to know that's being asked of your child. And then where are you taking that data? Where does the data go? Who's going to be using that data? What is the data being used for? Why would you even just opt your kid out of it?
Yeah.
But there are lots of ways to do that. I believe that America is the most free and fair country in the world, and you've got teachers that are teaching that it's not. That we are inherently a racist country, and I don't think that's healthy.
Well, and it's sickening because it's these teachers who have enjoyed the blessings of liberty trying to set up society that denies those blessings of liberty to the next generation.
It's to create chaos in the to eliminate stability, religion, family bonds. All of these things are sort of driven by this curriculum. And when you're asked explicitly or told that you should lie to the parent, that's just evil. Yeah, that's just a non-starter. It's a non-starter, and I absolutely will not do that.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're fighting back. I know it's tough. I know it's not easy. I know it's not cheap. You probably lost a little bit of sleep over the last couple of years, and yet you soldier on.
Yes.
And I'm just so darn proud of you for that.
Thank you.
It's just inspirational. When Jack Castle told me about you and I started reading up, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a lion, and I've got to meet her. And so I'm thrilled to have had the chance to meet. I'm thrilled you came here. We could go on forever. But you know, I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything else that while we're here you'd love to share?
I would just say that my main points, I think, are valid, and that schools should address them. There should be transparency with the teacher training and the curriculum. That just seems like common sense. The taxpayers and the parents should be able to see that. The transgender policies should be clear, crystal clear, for the employees and for the parents, so that they know what could potentially happen. It should not be vague, and it should to protect teachers and parents and students from, whatever. I mean, it needs to be clear in the policy where the district is standing. And then I do believe that public schools need to return to a focus on academics, reading, writing, math, social studies, art, music. These things are all good, but we have swung way too far on SEL and DEI and identitarian concepts that have no place in schools. And it's illegal. It should not be legal for them to do it. So I just would hope that anyone hearing me who has an opportunity to speak out against it or to stand up and fight this is I would urge you to do it.
Is there any place people can follow you as you continue this journey or help you? Or lock
I'm
arms
on
with you?
X. I do have a Give, Send, Go. It's uncomfortable for me to push that. It just doesn't feel right to ask for money or donations, but it is a very expensive process to litigate. And so I do have that. I had a friend set that up, or a friend did set that up for me, which was nice. I'm on X, but
What's the handle?
KC Sully. No, Sully KC 17.
Call it Sully KC 17.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to be following you right after this. How did I not know that? Awesome.
Yes, I really appreciate you letting me come on to your show, and I do feel like it's important to shine a light on this issue, and it's still very relevant, and it'll take a long time to dig out of what's been happening in the schools. It's been there for decades, and we're only just now beginning to fight against it in a way that has much teeth to it. So I just hope that keeps moving forward, and that we can just keep soldiering on.
Yeah. Well, I think you're a pioneer.
Thank you.
I think years down the road, we're going to look back and there were pioneers in the homeschool movement. There have been pioneers in every good movement. I think you're one of them in this, trying to bring some level of accountability back to governmental education.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of the system, period. But if we can't get rid of it, I want it to at least not be evil.
Right.
Right. So, well, this is great. Thank you so much for your stand.
Thank you so much.
It's been awesome. This wraps up the latest episode of the Finding Your Spine podcast. We are coming to you from Smithville, Missouri at the Herzog Foundation Studios. The Herzog Foundation is an amazing, amazing organization that helps to catalyze Christian education and bring you amazing stories and voices like Caedran's. Check them out at herzogfoundation.com. To learn more about me and my other work, you can head on over to chasespears.com. Here on this show, we try to bring you the voices of people who are in the fight, not thinking about it, but doing it to show you it can be done. But it's up to you to put these principles into action. It's up to you to find your spine. So let's get to it. I'm Chase Spears. Thanks for listening.
Remember to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we'll see you next time on Finding Your Spine.